In this video, I'll discuss the installation requirements for Server 2016 Technical Preview 2. Microsoft's Jeffrey Snover, the lead architect for the Windows Server team, said it well when he stated that most people don't realize how much overhead is incurred by running local graphical management tools on a server. So instead, Microsoft's strategy seems to be to run graphical and command line tools remotely from a client over the network to the server. When we install Server 2016 Technical Preview 2 from the DVD, we get two options. The first of which is to install Windows Server Technical Preview 2. However, it does not include a GUI, but it does include a local Windows command line as well as PowerShell support. Of course, PowerShell can be used remotely against that type of installation, as can graphical management tools. Now, the second installation option is Windows Server Technical Preview 2 with local admin tools. This will give you local graphical support where we can run management tools like Server Manager and so on. There's also a third way that we can install Server 2016, and it's a very small, lightweight instance of the server product. It's called NanoServer, but it's not installed through this. We'll talk about that a little further in this demonstration. Let's examine those two installation options after installation has completed. When we install Server 2016 with local admin tools, we get what appears to be a graphical screen once the server has booted up, where it's telling us to press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to sign in or unlock. So I've pressed Ctrl-Alt-Delete and I'm going to sign in with the domain administrator account on this system where I've already installed Active Directory. So it looks much like we would have expected in Server 2008 and Server 2012. Once we get signed in, we get what appears to be a standard Windows desktop, where in the bottom left, if I click on the Start menu, you'll notice they've brought back the older style Start menu, although I can still search for items as we could in Server 2012 R2, for example. We've also got our File Explorer tool, so if we need to administer the file system on this local server, we can do that. Plus, we also have the Server Manager graphical tool available to launch. Server Manager was also available in Server 2008 and Server 2012, and one of the nice things about it, besides managing the local server, is that we can add other servers to administer all from this single interface. So here I've got a NanoServer, and then I've got two other Server 2016 installations that are available to be managed through the GUI. Let's take a look at Server 2016 without local admin tools. So we have a screen that's asking us to press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to unlock, but notice it's not a graphical type of login screen. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then I'll supply the password for the administrator account and I'll press Enter. So this is reminiscent of Server Core that we had available in Server 2008 as well as in Server 2012, where we've got a command prompt. There are no graphical tools. I could also type PowerShell to start a PowerShell instance if I wanted to manage the server using that command line tool. I'll go ahead and type exit to get out of there. Let's take a look at what a NanoServer installation looks like. A Server 2016 NanoServer is a very small, lightweight instance of the server operating system, but you don't install it like you normally would by booting from the product media. Instead, here on the installation media for Server 2016 Technical Preview 2, there is a NanoServer folder where we have a nanoserver.wim file, an image file. We've also got packages here that we could apply to the NanoServer. There are scripts available online where we could convert the WIM to a VHD and then build a virtual machine based on NanoServer. Let's take a look at what that appears like once it's been installed. Now, there's nothing wrong with your screen, so don't adjust it. But this is the Nano interface. There is none. NanoServer is designed to be managed remotely, so there's not even a local command line tool to administer it. As you might imagine, NanoServer has the least installation requirements of the three that we've taken a look at. Back here on my installation with the local admin tools, including the GUI, I've started PowerShell and I've used the get Windows feature command to list Windows features with the word GUI. And we can see here, when the local admin tools are installed, we get the graphical management tools, the server graphical shell, and in this case also the GUI for the Windows Server anti-malware, because Windows Defender is built in to Server 2016. However, if I were to take a look at the same type of command but on a NanoServer, for example, get -Windows feature -computer name, and in this case, nano-1, which is a NanoServer that I've joined to my domain, we can see that we've only got a handful of features installed. Now, if we wanted to see if any of them are related to the GUI, we could do what we did up above and wildcard it looking for GUI or GUI. And we can see we get nothing returned because that cannot be done on a NanoServer. So again, NanoServer has smaller installation requirements than the other two options do. Let's take a look at some performance counters here on our installation with the graphical shell. So I'll right-click on the taskbar and I'll choose Task Manager. And I'll go to the Performance tab. In terms of CPU requirements, Server 2016 needs at least a 1.4 GHz 64-bit processor. In terms of memory, it's quite interesting. If we were, let's say, to set up a virtual machine in which we were going to install Server 2016, and if we only allocated, let's say, 512 megabytes of RAM, we would have problems. The installation needs more than that. So for example, you might choose to allocate 1 gigabyte of RAM, and then after the installation, you could scale it back down, let's say, to half a gig of RAM. In terms of disk space, we need a minimum of 32 gigabytes of disk space, but of course, this is really going to depend on what you plan to install on the server in terms of third-party software, as well as server roles and features. Now, if you have a machine that's got more than 16 gigabytes of RAM, you'll want to make sure you have more disk space to account for things like swap file or paging, as well as hibernation files, dump files, and so on. We should have at least a gigabit Ethernet adapter for the installation. And if you're going to install from the product DVD, then you'll need a DVD drive. Depending on the installation choice, you might need a monitor, keyboard, and mouse, but that's certainly not the case, locally at least, with NanoServer. NanoServer, remember, is designed to only have the components installed that the server is going to be using. And so, as a result, NanoServers are approximately 90% smaller in terms of VHD disk space than even Server 2012 R2. In this video, we discussed the installation requirements for Server 2016 Technical Preview 2.